Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to my space. I'm so excited to be here for episode 11 of Practicality and Magic, where we bring the practical so that you can be magical. And today I am welcoming my dear friend, and I just love her so much, Christina Clinton. And Christina, I'm going to let you tell everybody all about your magic and the practicality that you bring to help people be magic.
You
So,
are so sweet, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sending the love back to you.
thank
Really.
you. I love it.
So, what should I share? What should I share today? I am a student, I would say a student of magic and also grounded in the practicality, as always. I'm like half intellect, half intuitive energy, goddess.
Yeah. And
I
boy,
would
is
say
that
I
ever,
would say 50-50.
that is so true. That is so true.
And I
And
say I shift in between. I shift
yeah,
in between.
like the pendulum, right? The
Yeah.
flow. And I love
Mhm.
that because that's important. So, you're, tell us what you do for
Okay.
work and all that, because this leads into why I want you to be on.
Okay, sure. So in that spirit, my intellectual work, I'm not going to lead with any one or the other of important, like level of importance, but my intellectual work has been in corporate communications my entire career.
Hmm.
So I've been working in a corporate space and largely using my intuition and emotional intelligence and my Brooklyn street smarts to actually figure out the corporate world and survive and thrive. And then I'm also an executive coach. And so now I get to go in and coach people in corporate environments and help them on that journey as well. I also teach leadership intuition, both to my corporate clients and to private clients and to anybody that will listen and is interested in learning how to is strengthen their intuition. You can strengthen your intuition, you can strengthen your emotional intelligence, and so I love to work with people to help them figure that out.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love all of that. And I love that you bring the intellect with the intuition, because we tend to think that they're separate, but they aren't. They're
Mhm,
like this, right? And it's just a matter
mhm.
of discernment.
Absolutely. And actually, years ago, I'll give them a little shout out. I was working with brand consultants. Root and River is the name of the company, and the one of the owners, Justin, after our session said, "I am like more exhausted." I hope he's okay with me telling you the story. I didn't ask him, but he said, "I am more exhausted working with you than other clients." Because you have a constant superhighway going on between your brain and your intuition. And he's an intuitive, like, so he's like really picking up on that as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's a great observation. I'd never really thought about it that way. But the energy is constantly flowing for me as it is for I think most people.
Yes. Yes. And I believe that it is flowing. It's just a matter of if we're aware or not, right?
Right. Hmm.
So I want to say hi to all the people that have joined us. I see the numbers growing and growing. So thank you so much. And comment. Let us know that you're here. Tell us hi and let us know where you're joining us from. So as Christina said, she's a Brooklyn girl, and
Hmm.
I love that.
Hmm.
And so I want to know, Christina, we're going to get to the emotional intelligence piece of this in a bit, which is so important. And I think, is just, it's everything in so many
Hmm.
ways. But do you want to tell us a little bit about like how you, like when you knew about your intuition,
Hmm.
when it, really came to be like something that was present that you were connecting to, because we all have it, but whether we're connected or not is another story.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'll tell you my story. I've talked about this online, so it won't be a surprise to everyone if you've read my stuff. But the first time I really remember my intuition, which I use the word intuition interchangeably with like being empathetic, really feeling people's energy, sometimes connecting with the spirit world. kind of, for me, it's a gradation of the same experience, our ability to connect
Mhm.
and feel and see and hear and know what's happening around us, right? To different
Mhm.
degrees. So my first memory is when I was 4 and I experienced, a visit by somebody who had passed over. And I as
Family member?
no, it was actually strangers. I didn't recognize them.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I remember telling an adult who did what adults do at that time. I mean, we're talking 50 years ago, 48 years ago. And the adult said, "Don't tell anybody, they'll think you're crazy." So I remember that moment and I didn't tell anybody because people would think I was crazy. But if you were close to me growing up, I'm the one that you would call if you lost your, necklace or whatever. Like, let me know if you see it in a dream, or I would, just casually know something was going to happen before it happened. Or if I was with somebody, sometimes I would know that they were sick and maybe they were going to pass on soon. So I remember those moments, but I usually didn't verbalize them very much because I thought everybody had the same experience. And I was also afraid, I think, right? But if you were close to me in my life, you knew something was going on.
Mhm.
Because, I would mention, dreams or mention things from time to time.
And
And go ahead.
can I just
Yeah.
like your parents, how did
Mhm.
they like what was their,
My parents were always and are extremely supportive in
Mhm.
this area. They always listened, they always believed me, they always supported me, and I give them a tremendous amount of human credit for that. you know?
So they
They
weren't part of the adults that said, "Don't tell anybody, they'll think you're crazy."
no, but I would say that even the adult that said that, I believe said that because they also experienced that. And if I had to guess, people would, it was the time, right?
I
It was the time.
absolutely, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think it was like more of a protective thing. Like, let me protect this little one,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
But yeah, most of the people around me in my universe were very supportive, but I also didn't tell them a lot. So they were supportive of a very minute level of information. As I got older and as I started stepping into myself, I would say I've been working on this for the last 20 years, having fun with it, I should say, but really stepping into myself the last 6 years. When I started talking more openly about it, not everybody has been open and supportive. Most people have been. So I just want to say that. Some people it's a little scary and it's a little, shocking, and they just don't want to go there with me. And I also have a lot of agility with when and where I talk about it. So if I'm in a corporate setting and I'm working, I don't really talk about it.
Mm.
So it really depends on the audience and the where and the when.
Yeah, and I love that, and that
Mhm.
I know I've kind of skewed us away from
Mhm.
your original story, and we'll get back to that, but I
Yeah,
just have
fine.
another question because, you know, for a long time being, intuitive, medium, all that,
Mhm.
I really hid it. I
Mhm.
only allowed myself to be seen fully in
Mhm.
circles that I felt were safe, right?
Mhm.
With other
Absolutely.
intuitives, with other whatever.
Mhm.
And so that was hiding. That was like a
Mhm.
fear, that was a hiding, whatever.
Mhm.
That and so over the years as I've like grown in my own strength and
Mhm.
comfort with
Mhm.
who I am and my authentic self, I'm not hiding. I'm just very discerning about who I share it with
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
where those pieces of
Right.
me come to be, right?
Mhm.
Like I used to like I taught this class one time and I had students who like they were in the infancy stages of this and they were so excited so they would go somewhere and they would get information about a person and they would go, "Oh, blah 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 blah, blah," and just like spill it all out right and the person's like,
Mhm.
"What?" And it's like this is not a party trick,
No, didn't ask for that. Exactly.
right? It's like this
Definitely.
information is coming, but that doesn't mean that it's for you to share. So
That's
anyway,
absolutely right.
I think it takes some honing and some
Mhm.
practice and but whatever. But I love that because, the point that I was getting to is we we're discerning of who and when to share it with.
Mhm.
But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we're not like we're hiding it. We understand.
Yeah.
And the corporate
Yeah. I think that's important. So I think that's a very important distinction because there was a period of time where I was hiding it.
Mhm.
I mean, I had real serious I just found out I was telling you I met with an ex-boyfriend who I
Yes.
haven't seen in 11 years, and I had a serious relationship with him, and he had no idea. Like, I hid this from him. And when I started talking to him about it, he was like, you know, so there I think there have been times in my life where I hit it, and I think that might be the case for some people. Now I'm very discerning, and that's an intentional shift, and there's no judgment there because I feel like everybody's on a different
Oh,
journey with this.
yes. Amen.
And actually, when I started I took intuitive gym classes with these amazing women, Keisha and Mary. And I remember the first class, I was so happy. I was like dialing in on my phone and people couldn't see my face. And I didn't tell them my last name. And I totally wanted to remain anonymous because I was afraid if anybody found out where I worked and what I was talking about, I would get fired. I mean, this was a real fear.
Yeah.
So this is why I hid it for, a long time. Even something simple as intuition,
Well,
know?
it is simple. It's the most natural,
Yeah,
basic part of us, right? I mean, every
absolutely.
single human on this planet is born with it,
Absolutely, absolutely.
but it isn't embraced. I mean, it's becoming
Mhm,
more common and more accepted, and
mhm.
more people are understanding it. But I was listening to I don't know if you've ever listened to it, but it's Cryon, I think is the name of the so it's
No.
this guy, Lee Carroll, I believe is his name, and he channels this being
Mhm.
named Cryon.
Okay.
Somebody told me about it, and so I went to the YouTube and looked up this one, and I can't remember what it was that resonated with me, but I was listening, and he was talking about feelings of unworthiness and
Mhm,
not being able to receive and things like that, which are, these
mhm,
are topics that I think are important, especially for women. We've
mhm.
talked a lot about these things, Christina, you and I.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But he was talking about how, like, we wonder why we're that way when for years we were told, like,
Mhm.
you have this ability to do this. Like, we were actually, like, he used this example, like, the tribes would come to you and say, come heal this person.
Right,
And then you
right,
would do it, and then they would say, you're out of here.
right.
They would banish you or
Yes.
burn you or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's
Like
like,
we acknowledge the gift, but and the skill. It's because it's really is a skill. It takes
yeah,
practice too.
yes,
Um,
we
mhm.
acknowledge it, but you scare the hell out of us. So get away. Right.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
is there any wonder why? Right.
Mhm.
In this lifetime now, those of us who have
Right.
probably done this lots of times,
Yeah.
we have these little places where we get hooked. Right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we were hiding, and it makes sense. And so when people are on their journey wherever they are, and like you said, no judgment,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, and I think also it's a reflection of society. Like if we look at the history of the last 100 years, where even 200 years ago, where we didn't have science, we didn't have medicine, and then over the last 100 years, there's been a huge emphasis on science and data and information, which is great for the good. But it's almost like we've gone too far. And how do we swing the pendulum back a little
yes,
bit and know that we were um, basically born. Our body is made to experience intuition. It's made for it. It happens, right? And it's actually the people who push it away and shut it down and close it down that aren't actually having the full human experience. Like,
amen. Oh, thank
yeah.
you for bringing that up, Christina, because I talk about this all the time, like this ear stuff that I've had going on.
Mhm,
I know that there's a direct connection between it and
mhm.
5G. And
Yes.
people look at me like I have four eyes,
Mhm.
or like I'm an alien of some sort when I talk about that. And it's like, listen, people,
Mhm.
you may not think about it on the daily, but
Yeah.
we are energy.
Right.
And we're not only energy, we are mostly water, which is the biggest conductor of energy. There's a
Yes.
reason you don't stand in water when there's lightning out,
Right. Right.
right? So, as that, we're going to be conductors, and
Mhm.
we are conductors of energy.
Mhm.
And we're affected by all of this energetic stuff, whether it's other people, electricity,
100%.
right?
Mhm.
And so it is just our natural, intuition is our natural set point.
You know what, Michelle? I wish I would have thought about this before this I have to come back and do something with you
Yes.
live online.
Yes.
I recently took a coaching certification course,
Mhm.
and they were very grounded in energy and intuition, right? And they have this great experiment, but it works all the time. I've tried it with so many people, where you take a coat hanger, right, and you take the end of a straw, and you're standing on one side of the room, and you put somebody else on the other side of the room, and you're holding two coat hangers, actually two coat hangers with straws, so there's like a grounding effect through the
Yeah.
straws. And
Almost like the dowsing rods.
exactly, they're like those rods.
Mhm.
And the person across from you, they don't even have to say anything. They just have to think a negative thought and walk toward you, and it affects the rods to close, to
Oh,
shut down. The
yep.
energy, just the energy. I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't actually seen it with my own eyes and tried it every
Yeah.
single time. And then, even this is the scariest part. We were playing around with it, me and my colleagues, and I said to somebody in the program who I adore, she's the sweetest thing ever. And I said, I want you to say out loud, I hate you, Christina. And she goes, but I don't hate you, Christina. I know it's not true. And I said, I want you to do it because I want to see if just the energy of the words, even though you don't feel it in your heart and in your body, affects these rods. And she did it, and it closed the rods.
Oh
So
my
the power of the word,
god.
the
Mhm.
power of the word, and how the word projects energy on our kids, our spouses, any relationship we have, on our whatever it is incredible. And these rods demonstrate it. We have to do it, Michelle.
We've got to. That would be so much fun. And didn't you say that even if the people didn't say the words, if they were just thinking,
Yes, just
right?
the energy of the thinking. We did all of these different experiments. And then if someone's thinking positive things, the rod's open. And it's like my entryway is wide open. Think about it when you're in a relationship with somebody, or you're walking on the street and you're interacting, right?
Yep.
Are you open? Are you open in the rods, or are you closing the rods?
I love that. I'm going to use that visual now. Are my
Yeah,
rods
are you
are
open
my
the
rods
rods,
open? I
or are you
love
closing the rods?
and what I mean, that's just brilliant, right? And what an example of us as energy
100%.
and the absolute connection, whether we realize it or not.
Mhm.
This is why, and I know that you work with this a lot with yourself and your clients, but
Mhm.
that's why we have to be so aware of our empathy,
Mhm.
how easily we can get overwhelmed, right?
Yes.
And the tools that we have to work on that are essential, right? So
Yeah. I
again,
know.
people,
But
what questions do you have? Sorry, what questions do you have for Christina? What questions? We got to talk. So come on in. I want to hear. I want to
while
know.
we wait for questions, what I was going to say, in
Yes.
addition to the empathy, on the flip side, so we can feel, I mean, my story with intuition and everything is feeling, if I go back to my beginner mindset, like 20 years ago, feeling very overwhelmed by all of the information and experiences coming in. Very, very, very overwhelmed.
Mhm.
On the other side of that was tremendous ego.
Yeah.
I feel so much. I know so much. I know better than the other person. I can help the other person, and like really, and I really had to learn a lot about boundaries and keeping the ego out of it, and for people to really helping people to get in touch with their own self-awareness and
Yes.
make their own decisions, and for me to be completely separated from the outcome, which, this took me years, by the way. It sounds simple, but it takes, when you're highly intuitive, this is really a
Yes.
skill.
It is a skill. Well, because
So,
it's a challenge because when you're dialed in, because I always talk about it like an old-fashioned radio,
yep.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Um, and that the we're all there. Some of
Mhm.
us are more in the fuzz, some of us are more dialed in.
Mhm.
Um, and when we're really dialed in, it is crystal clear. It's crystal clear. So it feels so crystal clear to us. And so when we're sharing the information, it's like,
Mhm.
it's so clear, just do it. Or just Just, you know what I mean? But then we've got to step back and remind ourselves that we're human too. I can get
Mhm.
all sorts of information from intuitives and mediums and my own guides and people and all that. And that doesn't mean that I do anything with it.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. We have to be very discerning about, and that's where the intellect comes in, right? And also our own emotional intelligence, like really figuring out what we want to act on or not act on. And the best thing about me going for coaching certification at a very science and intellectual based program, and I chose that, by the way, because I wanted to balance out my intuition skills, is that it reminded me that even though I have strong intuition, I only know about my clients what they choose to tell me or choose to show me. There are a whole host of things that people hide from you in these exchanges. And the other thing is that I may have really strong intuition and I'm right most of the time, but I don't know the details. And people are much better at figuring out the details for themselves than I ever could be. Right.
Yes, I
So
love
it's like how to you know, let that go a little bit so that
yeah.
people can figure things out for them. That's my big thing. Let people figure it out for themselves.
Yeah. Well, because we're just the guides.
Yeah.
I always think of it like I see this visual of me with the person that I'm connecting with
Mhm.
intuitively. Like
Mhm.
we're on this path. I'm the one with the lantern
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
and I'm holding it up, right?
Mhm.
To help. But that doesn't mean that I know everything
Right.
or that I have any idea. And I always tell people, like, I don't like to do predictive stuff. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's too many things that can come into play. So I always tell people, this is a possibility.
Right. Right.
However,
There's also free will. Humans have free will.
well, and that's the thing. This is
Yeah.
a possibility, but between
Yeah.
now and then, you could make 500 different decisions that will take you
Definitely.
on different paths.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
you know, we got to be clear about that. But I
Yeah.
love that, Christina, because we got to let that go and take the ego out of it. And
Mhm.
I've never really heard it talked about that way with the empathy overload, that there is that side of the intuition, but there's that equally present side of ego.
Yeah, and I talk about it because this is my journey. I mean, we teach what we know, right? And I'm like, I was in both camps, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot, you
Yeah.
know? And then also I've
Oh,
been
go ahead.
because I went to so many, teachers along the way, I also experienced that on the flip side. Teachers who, with the best of intentions, were too trying to mold me or get me to do something or whatever it was that wasn't in the best service to me. Do you know what I mean? So I always talk a lot about that too, to make sure you find the right people, but you also have boundaries.
Absolutely, because it's all about any, to me, any teacher, any guide that is
Hmm.
here to help you,
Hmm.
any person, the ultimate goal is to help that person have stronger intuition,
Definitely.
their own personal GPS first. So
Exactly.
they know what resonates or not,
Hmm.
right? Not from a place of, oh, this doesn't resonate. Like I've had people tell me to do stuff and I don't do it, not because it doesn't resonate with me, but because at that time it scared the hell out of me and I was afraid of it. And so I didn't do it.
Right.
That's different. You know what I mean?
Totally.
But then there's also things people tell me, and I'm like, ew, that just isn't resonating.
Hmm.
But I know that because I've practiced. So I love this. Anita,
Hmm.
as you guys have mentioned that this is a skill and how it needs practice, what are your recommendations on how to practice and
Yeah.
develop this gift? So, Christina, I'll let you take that away.
Yeah. So couple of different ways to do this. I learned how to develop my intuition skill accidentally. I have to be honest, disclaimer, I did not say, oh, let me strengthen my intuition. I had a journey that a lot of people have, which is I was having physical problems, which you were talking about your ears. I was having physical problems. The doctors were like, you're healed. Everything's fine. I'm like, no, I'm not. And I said, okay, there must be something else going on here. So I started, the first thing I started was Reiki, which is an energetic, healing practice from Japan. And I also went to a therapist. I I want to support the concept of therapy because I know there's been a lot of stigma around that over the years, but I just want to say that loud for anyone who feels like it would help them. And I started doing all kinds of different energy work. Like I did Tai Chi, and I started noticing that my intuition was getting stronger. And it was because I was putting my body I was taking my body out of the fight or flight mode and getting into a much more neutral state,
Yeah.
which was increasing my ability to connect with what was happening around me and within me.
Mhm.
And of course, the intellect in me is like, I need to. Then the overwhelming feeling became even more overwhelming. I'll be frank about that, right? And I was like, okay, now I really need to figure out what's going on because I cannot manage this anymore. And so I became a student of myself. And since I'm half intellectual and half intuitive, I started, figuring out the experience. I took classes, I worked with teachers, I did all kinds of stuff that I'll be happy to share with people like offline. And I found safe people who I could speak my truth to, who's created a safe environment for me to practice. And then the intellect in me wanted me to prove that I was right most of the time. So I started like intellectually tracking my yes rate, which was high. And that's basically my journey. I just kept opening up that space and getting curious about myself and what I was experiencing in my body to the degree that even if I went for a massage, I was always observing what was happening to me in that moment and understanding, oh, okay, this is an intuitive experience. This is my intuitive language, right? So I just got curious and got to know myself really well. That's what you have to do. That's that's the bottom line.
Amen. And it's like I always liken it to dating.
Mhm.
We have to date ourselves.
We
We
have to
have
date
to spend
ourselves.
the time, the attention, the
Mhm,
energy with
mhm,
ourselves, getting to know ourselves just like
mhm.
we are hungry to spend time with somebody that we're attracted to when we're
Right.
first dating. It's like we
Mhm.
can't get enough of them. We
Right.
have to give ourselves that same time and attention and that day-to-day practice,
Mhm.
right? So like you were saying, keeping track.
Yes.
So you could like that's what I journal and I
Yeah.
would track, of, oh, today I'm feeling like this. And
Mhm.
because what I notice is that we get intuitive hits. And it
Mhm.
can be anything. It can be about ourselves, it can be about a
Mhm.
relationship, it can be about the world, it can be just random.
Mhm.
And we go, well, that's weird. Like, oh well. And we just kind
Mhm.
of pass it off, right?
Mhm.
So then when it comes to be or whatever, we go, oh, I knew that. That's great. But what I loved was when I journal about it, then when it
Yes.
comes to be, I go back and I go, oh my gosh, on this date, I said this,
You got confirmation. It's your confirmation. And that's the confirmation gives us the confidence that
Yes.
what we're experiencing in the moment is real and reliable. And
Yeah.
by the way, because I work in the corporate world, there's this book of CEOs who are successful in business, and a very high percentage of them have intuition and hide it. And that's how they do it. I mean, you can apply this in so many areas of your life,
Yep.
not just, finding a necklace that's lost or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
I
Amen.
use it when I'm walking the streets of New York. I'm a New Yorker. I use it when I'm dating. I use it at work. I use it in all kinds of ways. And the other thing I don't want to forget to mention is the thing with intuition is really to start tracking what you experience in your body, where and when,
Yep.
because our intuition speaks to us through our senses, through knowing, feeling, hearing, or seeing. And once you understand that intuitive language for you, then that is you have that language, you have that guidebook, you know when you're experiencing it in real time. And then if you're tracking it, you know what your success rate is. And you
Yep.
know
Yeah. And I love that because it is through our senses. And
Mhm.
and what I have found is it can start with one sense.
Mhm.
And then once you've practiced that and
You're
honed,
totally right.
then it can come to another one, or
Yes.
it's louder, or it's more heightened in this other sense.
Mhm.
So it's not like it's just one. or all of them. It's, you run
Totally.
the gamut, and it's just practice. And the
Mhm.
important thing that I think is like people, I think we can fall into this trap of wanting to build our intuitive muscle so that we can read for other people, or so that we'll know the future, or so that these things. That's not what this is about.
No.
That, to me, intuition is purely personal first. That's
Mhm.
it. It's our internal GPS.
Mhm.
And just like you said, to use in all areas of our life,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. I mean, people are hiring all kinds of, and I'm a coach, so I love to be hired as a coach, but people are hiring all kinds of coaches and guides and everything. Like, I'm going to tell you something funny that I thought. Netflix has this, did I tell you about this? Netflix has this series on
No.
uh, near death experiences and mediumship. And there was a guy interviewed on the mediumship episode who's trying to prove or disprove mediums, and he's from New York City. And I need to find, I know where he works, I could probably find him, because he keeps going to all of these mediums to look for validation or to disprove them. And I'm screaming at the laptop, I'm like, just learn how to do it yourself,
Yeah.
seriously. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, all of us have this ability
We all do.
to tap into what's around us, and
To the energy field.
we don't need to hide. Now, what's helpful is in the beginning, as you're getting training. Of course, I mean, Michelle, I work with Michelle. I work with lots of people over the years who I reach out to when I feel like I need something, because sometimes it's hard to see ourselves all the time, right? So sometimes we do need people to help us along the way. But
Mhm.
I would say, like, a good portion of the time, I'm using my intuition for myself, and that's what other people should be doing for them, ideally for themselves as well, and not outsourcing it all the time.
Yes, and we don't wanna constantly be outsourcing it. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And what happens is, at least this is what I find for myself, and why I'm grateful for all of my, my mentors, my
Mhm.
teachers, my friends, the people that I hire to
Mhm.
do the guidance, is because
Right.
sometimes something is too personal, it's too
Oh,
emotional, and we
totally.
can't see
Mhm.
or feel
Mhm.
around
Mhm.
it or outside of it to get to the intuition. It's
Yes.
not emotionally charged, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so that's when
You know that. I've reached out to you about emotionally charged issues. I'm
yeah,
like, "Oh, I need your help with this."
well, we both, we have, and it's, thank goodness we've got this,
Yeah.
we've got other people,
Yeah.
each other and other people that can
Yeah.
help us with that. Anita, did that answer your question? I hope it did. The other thing that I'm going to add is meditation, or even
Meditation,
just
absolutely.
contemplation, like things. We often think of meditation as being sitting quiet, well, that is one way, but some of my most incredible meditative encounters have come when I've been outside with
Mhm.
nature, or I've been walking and I'm just in my, in it, and
Yeah.
I'm loving it. And so find just be open to allow it to find you in that way. But meditation, contemplation, stillness of some sort,
Mhm.
presence is really the best way to enhance your day.
And a lot of people say that, and I know a lot of people say meditation is hard for them. And I know when I started meditating, I couldn't do more than 30 seconds at a sitting. It was very overwhelming for me. Actually, when I went for Reiki in the beginning, I would come home and sleep for like 4 or 5 hours afterward. My
Yeah.
body was just, and spirit and everything was just decompressing. So I encourage people, like, just to start slow. And if they see that they're tired, or, just let it go with it. Right. This is a journey. It's a beautiful journey.
It is a
Right. And
beautiful.
our body is a kind of on it with us. It's not just a spiritual thing. It's also a real physical thing. But I talk about my tree. I mean, I'm from Brooklyn. We don't get close to trees because people do crazy things on trees. So but like, I went to Hawaii. I fell in love with the tree, and I came back, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm into the trees,
Yeah.
and I'm wide awake. And it's like being with the tree offers a space and a meditation space while I'm wide awake. And
Mhm.
I get all kinds of intuitive information in that 30 seconds, 1 minute, just standing by this tree.
Mhm. And
So,
you're open to it,
yeah.
right? Your experience in Hawaii.
Right. And also, I'll tell you what this is, Michelle. It all comes down to curiosity.
Yes. Oh my
because I went to Hawaii. My friend Claire, who I was in Hawaii, said, "Go hug the tree." And I said, "I've never hugged a tree." And she's like, "Go hug the tree." So I said, "Okay." So she took a picture of me hugging the tree. Right after that, not long after, I read an article about tree bathing.
God.
And I was also reading articles about Kundalini energy,
Mhm.
right? And then one day, this is the Saggy in me, I was like, I wonder if I just go pick a tree and I like try to have this tree bathing Kundalini experience in Brooklyn, if it'll happen. And it happened, scared the living daylights out of me. And I was telling somebody, and she's like, people go like to India and sit for like 3 years for this to happen. And you walked up to a tree in Brooklyn. So my thing with that though is there's no effort. It's easy, right? I was open. I believed it might happen or it could happen, and let the energy flow. So that's also a big thing with intuition. It's like we have to be in a neutral state, no
Yeah.
emotion, no expectation. It's so important
Yeah.
for the information to be reliable, and coming through. You have to be
Absolutely.
totally neutral, no emotion, and no
Yeah.
expectation.
I agree 100%. And
Mhm,
it's so interesting because, I've been doing this my whole life, connecting,
mhm,
seeing dead people, hearing dead people,
mhm,
connecting to people, being an
mhm,
a intuitive or a psychic, whatever word you
mhm,
want to put on it. But a year ago, so like in August of 2020, I just kept getting this information while I was being still and quiet, sometimes in meditation, sometimes when I was folding laundry,
mhm.
that's meditative for me.
Right.
Anytime my hands are doing something, cooking,
Mhm.
I get incredible insight when
Oh,
I'm cooking.
that's so interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's
Mhm,
crazy. But I just kept hearing like you need to move to the middle. Like you need to move to
mhm,
the middle. They were talking about politics and things like
mhm,
that, like just
mhm,
opinions, like
mhm,
move to the middle. And so I started practicing that. And then this year, like it's been about 15 months now that I've been doing
mhm.
that, sometimes with better results than others, honestly, because I'm human. You know
Of
what I mean? I'm
course,
not a robot.
yeah.
I'm not a robot. And but as I've done that, what I the my ability to connect has just expanded exponentially to,
Interesting.
in ways and to beings and
Mhm,
also dreams, and it
mhm.
has just expanded because I'm in this place of neutrality where I'm free of
Right.
opinions more and more,
Yep.
and
Mm,
I'm curious,
yep.
and open. So I love that. I love that. We got to add that for you, Anita. Curiosity.
Curiosity.
And do you believe it's possible?
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So, and the thing with the tree, I mean, I just can't tell you. I always love when you talk about your experiences with the trees because
Mhm,
I think nature is such a huge teacher and it's
mhm,
such a beautiful way to communicate
mhm,
with our
mhm.
intuition,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And it's just
Yep.
pure.
And people may say like, "Oh, a tree, a tree, a tree." Okay, so there was I think it was the New York Times. There was an article about how grown trees send energy to baby trees
Yep.
to help them grow. Okay, a scientific article. I want you guys to, if you're interested, like this is what I mean. Like, so we're acknowledging that scientifically there's an energy that's happening between trees. Why can't that energy be happening between us and trees, right? It's like when people say they stand over their plant and they send it, good vibes, the plant, you
Yeah.
know, grows better or faster or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, we can just see it in the way we are with our little ones. You know,
Mhm.
we emit energy as adults to our little kiddos or our furry animals or friends or whatever it is, and that energy has a huge impact, right? So,
Absolutely.
if we believe that, you know,
Absolutely.
gotta believe it all.
Absolutely. And what I love about the communication with the nature, I mean, because this
Mhm,
started for me, like I've always loved nature, but the communication started probably, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago.
mhm,
I was sitting in my yard. I'm not a gardener.
mhm,
I enjoy gardens.
mhm,
Like I love them, but I
mhm,
don't love creating them,
mhm.
My husband, however, is a phenomenal gardener. I mean, I'm so
Lucky
grateful.
you.
Yeah, I am blessed. And his our yard is just like incredible. And so about 5 years ago, I was sitting in the yard and all of a sudden I started hearing this stuff and I'm like, what is that? And then I realized it was the plants talking to me.
Oh, very fun.
Yes. And what they were talking to me about was they wanted to become products. They wanted me to
Oh,
create flower essence that would, help people. So it's like the Bach
I
remedies,
love it.
not the tincture, like
Yes.
with my sprays, but no
Right.
oils. Just so anyway, but that was my first like real like communication like that, where I knew very directly it was a message. Like
Right.
before that, I had just gone into nature to
Yeah.
feel or to take in,
Right.
but what I love about it is when I'm communicating with nature, there is no part of me that is not wanting it. Like there's no part of me that's resistant to it. When I'm connecting with the spiritual realm, sometimes like with my family or people that I know, there's some resistance.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, that's important to know.
Well, because of the relationship that we had in life.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
Maybe I'm thinking, why are you, of all people, coming to talk to me about this thing?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that was your biggest challenge in life. You know what I mean? But it's so interesting.
Definitely.
So that's what I love about that with the nature, because there isn't that resistance.
Yeah, I
Like,
never thought about that. But
yeah,
yes. Now, what I love about that is as you were explaining it, you were like hearing information and knowing how to apply it, which are two like really important,
yeah, absolutely.
skills, you know. I can't say most of the time my brain is going because I haven't thought about it, but most of the time I've been in my own experience open to the information and
Mhm.
the experience.
Yeah.
Where it got not always pleasant for me in the early days was people like I would get information about I couldn't control things. I didn't know what I would feel people like, for example, I'm standing in a Starbucks and I would feel somebody like
Yes. Yeah.
just but I'm not going to go. I mean, I have been known to do this, to go and take care of people. If my mother's watching this, she'll be laughing. I had to learn how to manage that, right? But you can't take care of everybody. You can't feel everything and fix people's problems. I mean, that's not the journey, right?
It's hard though,
So,
because we know that we can do it.
yeah,
It's hard not
right,
to feel like we just need to do it.
right,
Right?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's the boundary. And that is
Yeah.
self-preservation. That
Yes, and
is sacred care at the highest level.
absolutely, and that's very early. That's very important in the early days, and as you're increasing your intuition, and if you're meditating and you're doing energy work and you're really, getting massages, really going into the zone, praying, like getting whatever your thing is and getting into that space. Um, know that like a teacher early on said, you can just tell the universe or whatever you believe is speaking to you to not give you information you can't do something with. And I
Mhm.
didn't like that answer. I mean, you can apply it, absolutely. But I applied that for a while and that really helped because I wasn't getting information that I couldn't actually do something with.
Yeah.
Right. So,
And I think it's important that we know, like when I started doing this seriously,
mhm,
what I realized that what kept me for so long not doing it was I felt out of control. And
mhm,
want to
yes.
I didn't want to I didn't want anything that I
Mhm,
didn't want to have access to me to have access to me.
right.
Meaning like I didn't want any lower energy stuff.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
only, and then so through like communication with my spiritual team, they're like, "Oh, Michelle, you're in complete control of this. You're the architect of
Mhm,
your."
definitely.
And I'm like, "What?" And so then I started realizing, "Oh, I get to say what comes in. I get to
Yeah.
say how all this." And so like I have to redo it like every 3 or 4 months, but I have
Mhm,
this thing that I do where I have a contract with all the dead people.
yeah.
Like I'm off duty from 9 p.m.
Yes.
10 a.m.
Yes. Eh,
That's my private time. I
yeah.
can't work 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
So you're only allowed to come in if it's essential.
Right.
So this is the
Yep.
case where I've had visits from people
Yep.
where it was pertinent information for somebody or,
Who needed it.
whatever. But for the most part, they leave me alone because I
Yeah.
was up all night.
And I know a lot of mediums who do that. Or they also have a lot of mediums, and you probably have rituals too, where they put something on their head.
Yeah.
You can do this if you most of the time you'll see me, I'm walking around with sunglasses on my head. And
Mhm.
it's not just for a fashion statement. It's because it's a way of me being present but closing down. So I'm experiencing my intuition, but I'm closing down a lot, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, you do this for a living. I don't do this for a living. I use my intuition only when I'm with clients and in the corporate space, right?
Mhm.
So I don't want to experience anything else in
Yeah.
that moment,
Yeah.
right? And so it's really important to know how to, that's the other thing I learned along the way, how to turn it on, turn it off, dial it from 0 to 100 and everything in between. And
Yeah.
I never thought that would be possible, but it is possible.
Oh, it's so
It is
powerful.
possible through intention, requests, like you said, but also rituals
Mhm.
and, like there are all kinds of techniques you can do during the day
Yep.
to close that down. And sometimes, like even early on when I was learning how to do that, and it was overwhelming, I would eat a meal that was heavy in carbs and fat and protein, right? Like a hamburger or mashed potatoes. And if you're a vegetarian, like have something very like heavy in carbs,
Mhm.
and you're because we're receiving our intuition and this information through our body, if your body's distracted with another bodily function like digestion, it eases the experience.
Yep.
So that was also a very important tip early on as I was honing that ability to close it down, how to shut it down. You know,
Absolutely. And it's practice, right?
it's practice. Yep.
The more we practice, the more
Yeah.
we become aware of how it works for us. Because this is the thing too, Anita. Anita said,
Mhm.
um, I heard this is a personal journey. It is a
Yes.
personal journey, and we're all different. What
Mhm.
works for me may not work for Christina, may not work for somebody else,
Right.
might, whatever. And this is important too. Things that used to be really effective for me maybe aren't now because
Yes.
we're energy, we're always changing. So we
Mhm.
have to be aware of where we're at.
Mhm. It's very true. Actually, I think it's very so true because I've come to you recently and I'm like, I used to do that all the time. It used to work. Now it doesn't work anymore.
Yep. And
And
yeah,
yeah,
just
we have to keep evolving. I still take classes. I still have my teachers. I still get curious. I'm still learning something all the time about it.
absolutely. And Anita says, I definitely believe all is possible. I just have a hard time shutting my mind off.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. 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 I'm working on this all the time. She talks to her trees every night. I love that.
Mhm.
Okay, so Christina, we've got to talk about emotional intelligence because that's one of the things that you talk about a lot, and I think
Mhm.
it's so important. It's vital.
Yeah.
So, what is it? How is it different than intuition,
Mhm.
if it is at all?
Mhm.
Take it away.
I love that. So this is what I'll say. The first time I was thinking about this, Michelle, because I knew we were going to talk about emotional intelligence today. And I remember 1995, I'm watching television while I was doing something else. And there's an interview with Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book Emotional Intelligence. And he's saying, this is going to be the next thing. Corporate leaders are going to be focused on their emotional intelligence. And I remember looking at the TV set and being like, what? We don't talk about emotions at work. And I want to remind people that the whole concept of emotional intelligence actually started for the corporate world
Yep.
early on. I mean, he wrote the book for the mainstream, but it was really, I mean, they were really trying to shift corporations. Um, and so it's very common vernacular language now. Everybody talks about EI or emotional intelligence. There are assessments out there that companies and coaches use to gauge their emotional intelligence. And one of the ones I love the most is Hogan, which I'm not certified in it yet, but I love the assessment. So there's like this intellectual emotional intelligence thing, and then there's how we experience it and its connection to intuition and how they interact. And the way I like to think about emotional intelligence is, and Hogan does it in a really nice way, it's awareness in real time of what our own emotions are. and or awareness in real time of what somebody else's emotions might be, right? It's also our ability to process that information for ourselves and then maybe for others, and how can we notice the effect we have on other people from an emotional standpoint. And then it's our ability to regulate ourselves, right, in that moment or maybe afterward, and then have empathy for the other person and what their emotions might be. So it's a constant, back and forth, back and forth. It's like a seesaw, like, or something, like a very natural glide between observing what's happening not only within yourself but within the other person who you're interacting with. Now,
It's a high level, if I'm understanding
yeah,
that, it's a really high level of awareness or presence
yes, of emotion,
of and the people you're with. And
yes, right.
yeah,
Now, where intuition comes in for me is more in the behavior and experience. Like, so for example, when I am with someone, right, and I am having some kind of interaction with them, and say this person's getting emotional with me, I, in that moment, and this took many years to refine, but I, in that moment, I'm like curious, like, oh, are they triggering me? Is this my emotion? Is it their emotion? Like, what's happening in that moment? And that same awareness in real time is how we strengthen our intuition, right? So
yeah,
when I'm with that person, I'm not thinking like, is it my intuition? Is it emotional intelligence? It really doesn't matter. I mean, the important thing for me is knowing, is this mine? Is
yes,
what is happening mine? Am I being triggered? So I'm having like some sort of like emotional response. Is this triggering my mind, like my intellect? Am I picking up intuitive information? Right? It's discerning what's happening in real time, basically,
Mhm.
between me and the other person. That's really the key. And sometimes it's an intuition. Sometimes I'm picking up people's emotion, you know,
Yeah.
and that's the way I look at it. It's the discernment.
And that's so essential because that's how we are able to respond
Right.
in the way that's in our highest good
Absolutely.
versus react, right?
Right. Yep.
And that's why emotional intelligence is so important,
Very much so. Very
right?
much so. But what I will say about emotional intelligence is, sometimes, and I was thinking about this earlier, sometimes we have to, I mean, the goal of emotional intelligence is so that we're not reacting. We're not being triggered and reacting without intention, right? But
Yes.
sometimes we can be emotionally intelligent and have to respond, right? So I was laughing earlier because I talk about Brooklyn Christina, when Brooklyn Christina comes out today, I am very much in the moment, pretty much 99.9% of the time. If Brooklyn Christina comes out, you've earned it. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes you just have to respond, right?
You just
But,
well, you do. I mean,
right.
and that is, and it's okay. Like
It's
it,
okay.
and that we joke
Right.
about that in my house. It's like, when the Italian, the
Yes.
soprano part of me comes out and I'm talking with my hands a lot,
Right.
away, back away. You know what I mean?
But
Because
but the intelligence is we know what's happening in real time. That's the intelligence. The intelligence
yeah,
is I'm not flying blind. I
yeah,
know what I'm feeling. I know what I'm experiencing. I know what's mine. I know what's yours, you
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
that's the key.
And I think why I wanted to talk about this, and this is a whole other, we spent a lot of
Mhm,
time on intuition, which I love.
mhm.
This emotional intelligence, we can do a whole other show. Maybe when we come back with the
With the rods.
yeah, with rods, we'll do this. But more. But what I love about the emotional intelligence is that because we are empathic, all of us are to a
Mhm,
certain degree, I believe, because we're
mhm.
energy and we're water, we tend to just assume everything's ours
Right.
and we take it all on as if it is,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that emotional intelligence gives us the ability and the control to know how to discern
That's right.
what's ours, what's not. We're triggered, we're not. What you know what I'm just to and quickly. The more you practice, you can do it quickly.
Right. Now, the important thing to note, because I was looking at the science and data around this, because I do that too.
Mhm.
And the trick is that people that have taken an assessment, for example, and they know they have a low emotional intelligence, the data shows us they're not curious and don't want to become more self-aware and don't want to get to know themselves better. So if somebody, if somebody becomes aware of the fact that they have a low emotional intelligence and they're working with the coach, this happened to me with a couple of different clients actually, it's going to take an effort for that person to actually want to become emotionally aware. Right? It doesn't come naturally for everybody. And the other thing I've learned along the way is you can be social and not emotionally intelligent, which that confused me a little bit, because sociability has nothing to do with emotional intelligence.
Sometimes it's the opposite.
Yes.
I mean, come on, let's be honest. We know a lot of people that are social and not emotionally.
Yes, but there have been a couple of people who I've coached along the way who know how to fake it, meaning they know intellectually what will make them seem empathetic or emotionally connected, but in reality, they are not.
Yeah.
And so that's also a super interesting thing to observe about ourselves, right? And if anyone's curious, take an emotional intelligence quiz. Because I think that's a great starting point to figure out, where you are.
And I think like some people, I think it's like anything. We all have patterns. We all have places that we excel and places that we don't.
Yes.
And, the places that we don't, it's a journey, and it's not, we're not meant to tackle it all at once. You know what I mean? We're
Definitely not.
And so, we all can work on our emotional intelligence and our intuition, and it's just how we want to do it. And it really does depend on the energy level, because this stuff takes a tremendous amount of energy to move any pattern. Move energy within any pattern takes a lot.
Yes. And I'm glad you said that, because like I said, I've been on this journey like 20 years, but I took breaks. There were periods of time where I was like, I cannot even deal with this. I'm not taking a class. I'm nothing.
Because you get too over full.
Right.
It's like there's only so much knowledge and wisdom that so much knowledge you can bring in.
Right.
That then it needs time to assimilate and become wisdom.
Yeah.
And become practice, right?
100%.
So we have to know that. We have to be intelligent enough within ourselves to know.
Yes. And because this is so connected with our body, it can be overwhelming for our body too. So that's where, it's important to find the balance and take the breaks. And that's why I like walking, because if anyone's highly intuitive, moving our body is really important. It's really important. Yeah.
I have recently found this amazing practice. I'm going to give it a plug here. And I just have to say, hi, Lily. You're always perfectly on time. So
hi, Lily.
But I have recently found this practice called block therapy, and it is the most amazing. As an intuitive, as an empath, as a feeling, thinking person, it has been life-changing for me, because it works with the fascia.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I didn't really know a lot about fascia, but fascia is actually the largest organ in our body. And we hold everything in there.
Yeah.
All the emotions. And it's like it gets frozen.
Yes.
And everything gets stuck in there.
Yeah.
So it's this amazing thing. So there's a lot of different ways you can work with fascia, but what I love about block therapy, it's literally a block. I wish I had it, but it's literally a wooden block that's like that size, and you press it on different parts of your body. Yeah. And this has been the most amazing release of emotions I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
I'm working through stuff like this.
That is great.
It is. So if anybody go blocktherapy.com. I'm nothing for it other than I will love hearing the others.
Yeah. And it's like the rollers they have at the gym. That also is working the fascia. You can use those if you have one of those at home.
I just want to say really quickly what I love about the block therapy. It connects the block with specific diaphragmatic breathing.
Oh, that's good. So that you do.
And did everybody know 84% of weight loss is held in the exhale.
Oh, well, that explains everything. I need to be
Just saying.
exhaling.
Just saying, I can't believe that the changes I'm seeing in my body simply with this. I'll
I
take into
love
corporate
it.
when I'm ready. I'll share the after. Anyway, so
The
sorry.
other important thing you said, Michelle, though, that I want to share with everybody, because you said you were releasing things through the butt, is to not be like to embrace the crying, embrace the release of the emotions that as highly intuitive people or whatever, however you want to label it, it's super important to release the emotion. So, I mean, I do the same thing. There are times when I just you know, Leslie saying the roller is an ouch. I know.
Yep. So good. Yep.
But there are times like when I feel like I'm just not centered and I go to meditate in my, or just, I use the word meditate, sit by myself quietly in my room, and I'll just simply feel a part of my body wanting me to put my hands on it, like my stomach or my whatever. And I just cry for no real reason other than my body needs to cry and release whatever it happened, to pick up.
Yes, it's healing. Our
Yeah.
tears are salt water,
Yes.
which is healing,
Yes.
first of all.
Yes.
It's the first thing we do when we take a breath.
And we're
If a baby doesn't
yes.
cry, something's wrong. Right?
Exactly.
So it's our natural inclination.
Yeah.
It's how we communicate. It's our first form of communication. So as adults, we are told in this society, don't cry. That's weak. That's, my crying bothers somebody else. When people apologize for tears, I get so like, no. And when my niece passed away 17 years ago, it's been almost 18 years now. I could not cry. I couldn't. It was just the flood, and it was varied. Sometimes it was just quiet tears. Sometimes it was gut wrenching, and I could barely breathe.
Yeah.
But I didn't stop it, and my doctor was like, and this is not, I'm telling everybody, this is my personal experience. He was like, we need to get you on some medicine so you stop crying. And I was like, no.
Right.
No. My family was telling me to stop crying. And I'm like, no. That crying that I did for months was a release of so much crap that I had built up, the grief of so many things in life. And it led me to do what I do today.
Amen. I'm with the crying.
Because I listened to my body.
Yeah.
And I never once told myself you shouldn't be doing this. This is a bad thing, because it felt like the only thing I could do.
Well, you were returning to who you are. I mean, that's what I say. Return to who you are. You are who you are. Return to who you are. And the other, like, I had a similar journey where I was like, when I first started this, where I was crying a lot, and one of my best friends said to me, "You can't cry every day." And I'm like, "Oh yes, I can." And part of the strength we have as humans is our ability to know when to listen to other people and when not to.
Exactly.
Because if I had stopped crying, I mean, I didn't cry for like 32 years, and I was making up for it.
Exactly.
So, like, so I'm with the crying. And of course I functioned. I had a full-time job. I was very successful. I lived life, but you cry too.
I was taking, at that time when I'm talking about all this crying, I was taking care of my two small children, my husband, my house, my sister who had lost her daughter, my parents. I was doing it all.
Multitask. Women can do it all.
But this is the thing. So those tears were purposeful.
Yes.
And if I had listened to the people outside of me who had said not to, all it would have done is compacted all that water,
100%.
Congested my sacral chakra even more.
Yeah.
And God knows where I'd be.
Well, I'm glad you didn't listen, and I'm glad I didn't listen.
Yeah, me too, Christina. We are powerful, and we listen to our bodies. That's the key to
the body is the key.
That is the emotional intelligence, really, at the end of the day.
It really is, and your intuition. It's
in the body. It is. So Anita says, I love releasing emotions with the moon cycles. Absolutely. You know what? If they come in, but if they come in between, you do it whenever.
Yeah.
Tuesday at 3:00, and you don't know why. And this is the thing. our body is going to release as it needs to. So what I find
Absolutely.
is sometimes I'm in a really great place and I'm feeling a lot of joy and I'm feeling really good. And then suddenly I will move into this space of something needs, and I'll just cry.
Mhm, mhm,
And it's because I'm open and I'm willing and
mhm.
I'm in a good place. And so the body
Yeah.
goes, okay, let's do it now.
Yes, yes, and
Right?
you know yourself. You can identify what's happening for yourself in that moment. I
Amen.
love it.
Oh, Christina, thank you so much for being here. So
Thank
I
you.
want everybody to know how they tell everybody how they can reach you, how you can help them.
Okay, well, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me at ChristinaClinton.com. You can email me at cclinton@ChristinaClinton.com. I can help you if you are looking to talk about, work on any of the things we talked about today around your intuition, identifying your language, opening it, closing it, strengthening it, working with it, and or you work in a corporate setting, and you're a leader and trying to figure it all out. Absolutely can work with that too. So, and I'm open. If someone, their intuition is saying reach out to Christina, just reach out to Christina. That's
Amen. I love that.
what I will say.
Yes. And you guys know you can reach me at michellesnelling.com or michelle@michellesnelling.com. Right now, I had the most profound experience yesterday, last evening, and then in my dream state with my lineage and my ancestors.
Oh,
And I woke up renewed and excited to connect with not only
mhm,
them, but connect all of you with your people
mhm.
in the spiritual realm, however they want to come. So that's my special this week are my readings. I put them on sale. So head to my site, michellesnelling.com, and take advantage of that. Take advantage of, everything is prices are rising on everything right now, but
Yeah.
on my readings, they went down. So take advantage of it.
Well, and
And
before we go, I just have to tell everybody I've been using your scrubs for years, and it's so
oh,
helpful as an intuitive. Really, if
thank
anyone
you.
who has intuition, do the scrubs.
Thank you. Thank you. Because yeah, they really are life-saving.
They really are.
I use them throughout the day. Anyway, we
I
could go on.
love you,
I
Michelle. I
love you,
do love
Christina.
you.
And thank you, everybody, for being here. This was
Yes,
such
thank
a
you,
beautiful
everybody.
time. And thank you for all the comments and the interaction. And let us know if you need us. If you're feeling like you do, you do. So reach out. Thank you.
Amen. Absolutely.
All
See
right.
you. Bye.
Shoot, guys. Sorry, I exited the wrong thing.